I was on track to retire at 40. It was possible. I had everything to make it happen, but I blew it. And it's all because I ignored this one stupidly simple rule, simple money rule. If you don't know this, you could waste years of your life working for no reason, like many people do. But if you apply it, you might retire sooner than I tried to do. For years, I actually did everything right. By my 40th birthday, I could not retire. I was still many years to talk about retiring. In fact, retirement at my 40th birthday wasn't even in the picture. But that was when I met a man who had amassed so much wealth when he was younger than I was at that time. He'd amassed so much wealth and become so financially wise and independent. So I met this man. He told me the secret, but too many people miss it. So what is that simple money rule? Here it is. Your savings rate means nothing if your spending isn't weaponized. So most people focus on saving more. So you hear it all the time. Some of us even belong to the cooperative. At that time, in Chevron, I was part of the Chevron cooperative and I was saving lots of money every single month. And the cooperative would draw it directly from my salary, from our salary at the time. I was saving a lot. But I was also spending a lot because I remember when Chevron gave me a car grant, I even took more money from my savings in the cooperative and added to that car grant, which should have gotten me a very good car, used car. And I added some more money and bought an SUV, which gave me so much trouble. So how can I retire? How can I retire like that? So your savings rate means nothing. Type it. Your savings rate means nothing if your spending isn't weaponized. And I'm going to show you how you could weaponize your spending, because that was the secret. That was the secret. So most people focus on saving more, save. That's great. But the real key is spending strategically. The real key is spending strategically. And then when you are spending strategically, you are spending from the owner's mindset, not from a renter's mindset. Because the renter's mindset can never retire at 40. But the owner's mindset can even retire even at 35. So most budgets tell you save first. That's what they say. They say save first. But that's wrong. You pay your future self first. Big difference. Big difference. Pay your future self first by buying assets that pay you. That is the secret to retiring. It's not working hard. It's not just saving money or joining the cooperative. So pay your future self first. In fact, when I met that man, the first question he asked me? He said, the very first question, can you put aside 10% of your salary every month to put into assets that will pay you? That was exactly his first question. I said, only 10%? I said, I can even do 75%. He said, no. 10% is okay. Second question he asked me, are you living in your own house or are you renting? I said I was renting because that was a big problem that many of us, big boys in Chevron, that's the problem we had at the time. And I was saying, no. I can't go buy land in all those suburbs because I'm a big Chevron boy. How can I be living there? You see, but our junior staff, we used to call them junior staff, and then the casual workers, like the drivers, at that time, they were buying plots of land at Ogbo, at Mowe, at some of those outskirts of Lekki. And they were living in their own houses. But I was a big Chevron boy. How can I live in places like that? See, but those guys were better than us. They were better than me. Yeah, I was living in a big place. Later, we moved to the GRA, living in a big place, paying big money, but I was renting. It wasn't my own house. I did not listen to that man. You see why I didn't retire at 40 and why you shouldn't make that mistake. So step number one is that 10% freedom tax. It's called freedom tax because it is your freedom. You're paying your future self. And what do you do with that 10% freedom tax specifically? You don't use it to do charity. You don't use it to do as Shoebi. You don't use it to throw birthday parties. No. What you do is you buy assets that will pay you. Assets that will pay you dividends, royalties. Okay? So if you earn, let's say, $1,000 a month, then it means that $100 will go to income generating assets. Underline that. Type it and underline it. Income generating assets. That is what's going to save you free. If you do not have income generating assets, if you do not start building it in your 20s and in your 30s, you are not going to retire at 40. You won't even retire at 50. How many of us in our 50s have retired? How many? There are many people in their 60s. They can't retire. All right. Then step number 2. So that's step number 1, the 10% freedom tax. Step number 2, the expense to asset swap. Type that. The expense to asset swap. Swap, depending on where you come from, okay? So it means that every dollar, every naira that you spend should either disappear. That is expenses, or it should come back. That is assets. You know another concept I learned from the prophet Isaiah. He was a Jewish prophet that lived maybe 3,000 years ago or so. So there was a very powerful financial lesson that Isaiah taught me. He said that everything that comes into your pocket has 2 components. Every money, every income that comes into your bank account, into your pocket, has 2 parts. There is the seed, and then there is the bread. So he said that God gives his seed to the sower and bread to the eater. So your income, everything, every salary, every little catching that comes into your account has 2 parts, the seed and then the bread. What do you do with the bread? You eat. So that's the sustenance for you, your family, paying utilities and things like that. So sustain your life. So you eat. What do you do with the seed? You sow it. But guess what many of you are doing? You're in your 20s and you're in your 30s. Guess what many of you are doing? You're eating the bread and you're also eating the seed. But you should be eating the bread and sowing the seed. So there is the expense to asset swap. Every dollar you spend should either disappear, expenses, or it should come back to you as assets. All right. So instead of buying a 30 million naira car, which loses value, why not buy a 30 million naira rental property that pays you 3 million a year? You see what we call the expense to asset swap. Step 2, the expense to asset swap. So instead of making it an expense, swap it to an asset. And that's where delayed gratification comes in, which is what I'm trying to teach the youth. If you delay that gratification right now, and then you swap the expense with to assets, within 5 to 10 years, there's no car you want to buy that you cannot buy. And then you are going to be buying your car with your profits, not with your wages. You're going to be buying the car with the dividends of your investment, not with your capital, because I call it capital cannibalization. The reason most of you, like me, will never retire at 40, and some of you will never, the way you are going now, you can't even do it at 50 or 60, is because of capital cannibalization. Type it in the comment section. Somebody, type it. Capital cannibalization. You are cannibalizing your capital. The capital you are getting in your 20s and in your 30s, you cannibalize them. Therefore, in your 40s, you can retire. Step number 3 is what we call the 3-year test. Type it in the comment section, the 3-year test. So ask yourself, will this expense, this thing I'm about to buy now, will it still matter in 3 years? I wish I'd asked myself, when I took that money that Chevron gave me, the car grant, and then added money from the cooperative, I wish I'd asked myself this 3-year test. Will this SUV I'm buying matter in 3 years? And then I can answer it for you, because in 3 years' time, that vehicle had become such a liability that I had to sell it off. I had to sell it off. But you see, there was a wiser Chevron staff at that time. When they gave him his own money, you know what he did? He invested heavily in the financial markets, in the stock market. The stock markets were booming at that time. And then he invested it. Within 5 years, my SUV had died, had gone, and been forgotten. But he offloaded his shares and bought a house. So many times, this thing we call money or finance or wealth is simply wisdom. It's not amount of money. There are so many of you I see online showing off. You are not wealthy because you're not wise. You're not wise. Okay, so step 3, the 3-year test. Will this expense, this thing you're buying right now, that expensive shoe, that expensive ashwebi, that your hair wig, I hear that some of them cost up to $1 million or even more. Will it matter in 3 years' time? All right. So, and then all this most urgent spending like new phones, always fail the test. Okay. So now I started it a little bit late, but I learned my lesson. And I have been very consistent with my freedom tax. And because I started applying that freedom tax for a couple of years right now, I have watched my portfolio grow. I'm not a rich person yet, but I'm well on my way. And because I implemented that advice, we have been able to get a place that we call our own. So I'm no more renting or wanting to buy in VGC. Okay, so what are you going to do about this? So if there is one thing that you're taking away from tonight's coaching session, let it be this. Stop obsessing with savings and start weaponizing your spending. Start weaponizing your spending using the 3 steps I have taught you, and then grow yourself, your income generating assets that will drive your financial freedom. And whatever happens, keep showing up because you have no idea what's coming your way next.